My daughter-in-law banned me from seeing my grandkids after I paid for their house and supported them for years. But when I cut the money, now, she's begging without apologizing while I travel to Europe with my money. I'm 60 years old. I've been a widow for almost 10 years now, and I run the farm that my husband and I built together during 30 years of marriage. It's a beautiful place, with enough space for kids to run around, animals everywhere, and that peace you only find when you're surrounded by nature, you know, away from the noise of the city. I never imagined that this place, which I built with so much love thinking about my family, would become the center of a battle that basically destroyed my relationship with my only son and, what hurts me most, with my grandchildren. I need to tell this story because I've been carrying this alone for months, and frankly, I don't know if I did the right thing or if I'm the villain that my daughter-in-law tells everyone I am. My son Daniel is 35 now, and he was always a good kid, really. When his father died, he was like 25, just starting his career, and I made sure he didn't lack anything. The farm gives me good income. We're not millionaires, but we live well. And when Daniel met Nicole about 8 years ago, I thought she was a nice girl. A bit quiet, maybe, but I figured that was just shyness. They got married fast, like a year after meeting, and I was happy, because my son seemed happy. Nicole left her job as an administrative assistant almost immediately after the wedding, said she wanted to be a homemaker and eventually a mother, and I thought, well, if that's what they want, and Daniel can support the household, perfect. What I didn't know at that time was that I was going to end up being the one supporting that household. But I'm getting ahead of myself. When Nathan was born 7 years ago, I was over the moon. My first grandson, and let me tell you, that kid stole my heart from the first second. I'd visit them 2 or 3 times a week, helped with the baby, bought diapers, clothes, all those things that babies need and that are expensive, very expensive. Daniel worked in marketing for a mid-sized company, made decent money, but it wasn't a fortune, and Nicole didn't work, so I helped where I could. Then Connor arrived, my second grandson, 5 years ago, and the situation got a bit more financially tense for them. That's when I started helping with bigger things, like Nicole's car payments, some medical bills, stuff like that. It didn't bother me. Seriously, I have the money, and what else do I want it for, if not to help my family? What really changed everything was when they decided to buy a house. They were living in a 2-bedroom apartment that was getting too small with 2 kids, and Nicole started obsessing about having their own house. She talked about it constantly every time I visited. Showed me pictures on her phone of houses she liked, most of them completely out of their budget, and I could see Daniel getting more and more stressed. One day he called me and said, "Mom, can we talk?" and basically asked me for help with the down payment on a house. He didn't ask to borrow it. He straight up asked me to give it to him. It was like $50,000, which isn't small money even for me. But I thought, this is an investment in my grandchildren's future, in giving them a stable home. So I said yes. I gave them the money. They bought a nice house in a family neighborhood, one of those houses with a yard and close to good schools, and for a while everything seemed perfect. But what I didn't understand, or maybe didn't want to see, was that Nicole had developed this lifestyle that depended completely on my money. She enrolled the kids in an expensive private school, bought designer clothes for herself and the kids. They ate out constantly, vacations, swimming lessons, music lessons, all those extracurricular activities that cost a ton. And when expenses got out of control, guess who got the call? I kept helping because, honestly, I didn't want my grandchildren to suffer. But I started noticing that Nicole never, and I mean never, thanked me. It was like I had an obligation to give them money, like it was my duty. You know what I mean? Daniel at least said thanks, but he looked increasingly exhausted, working overtime to try to cover what I wasn't covering. Then 2020 came, COVID, and everything went to hell. Daniel lost his job. His company made massive cuts, and he was one of those laid off. Suddenly, literally their entire financial situation depended on me. I started sending them money every month, like an allowance of $3,000 or $4,000 so they could pay the mortgage, utilities, food, everything. For months, I was financially supporting a family of 4 while Daniel looked for work, and I didn't mind because I thought, it's temporary. He'll find something soon. But what started to change was my relationship with Nicole. She became colder toward me, more distant. And when I'd visit them, She'd barely talk to me. The kids would run to hug me, especially Nathan, who was always very affectionate with me. And I'd noticed Nicole making faces. The visits to the farm started becoming a problem. Since they were little, Nathan and Connor would come spend weekends with me, play with the animals, ride horses, we'd make bonfires, the kind of stuff kids love. It was our special time. They looked forward to it, and so did I. But Nicole started canceling those visits with excuses, like the kids had too much homework, or they were tired, or they had a birthday party to go to. At first I thought, well, okay, they're her kids and she can decide when they come. But the cancellations became more frequent until basically she wouldn't let me see them unless it was at her house, under her supervision. What really blew everything up was the Disneyland trip. Daniel had gotten a new job, one that paid less than the previous one, but at least it was income. And I thought, you know what? These kids have been through so much with the pandemic, locked up at home, not being able to go to school normally. They deserve something special. So I proposed taking Nathan and Connor to Disneyland, all expenses paid. It would just be me and them for 4 days. Daniel thought it was a great idea. The kids were super excited, but Nicole got weird from the start. She said 4 days was too long, that the kids would miss her, that maybe we should do just 2 days, basically looking for any reason to ruin the plan. In the end, Daniel convinced her to let them go, and the 3 of us went. Those 4 days were magical, literally. Nathan and Connor had the time of their lives. We rode all the attractions, ate ice cream until their stomachs hurt, bought souvenirs, took 1,000 pictures. The kids kept telling me, "Grandma, this is the best trip of my life." And I felt that all the money I'd invested in my family's happiness was worth it. When I brought them back home, Nicole didn't even come out to say hi. Daniel received them at the door. The kids ran inside to tell their mom everything they'd done, and I left thinking maybe she was tired or having a bad day. A week later, Nathan called me from Daniel's phone. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was in the garden, and when I saw my son's number, I thought it was him. But it was Nathan's little voice. He sounded kind of sad or worried, and he told me, "Grandma, I miss you so much. When can I come back to the farm?" It broke my heart to hear him like that because normally we would have already planned another visit, but we'd gone weeks without Nicole allowing them to come. I told him very soon that I missed him too, and to tell his mom to call me to coordinate. Nathan was quiet for a moment and then said, "Mom says you're very busy, but I don't think that's true." And that's when I realized something was very wrong. The next day, I received an email from Nicole. It wasn't a call, it wasn't a text message, it was a formal email, like business communication, where she basically accused me of manipulating my grandchildren, of trying to buy their love with gifts and trips, and of making her look bad as a mother. She said, the kids came back from Disneyland saying they wished they could live with me, that I was more fun than her, and that was unacceptable. She ended the email saying we needed to have a serious conversation about boundaries and respect. I read that email like 5 times trying to understand what I'd done wrong. I took them on a trip, gave them a good time, and that made me the bad guy? I called Daniel immediately. I was confused and hurt, and he sounded uncomfortable, like he knew this was coming but didn't want to deal with it. We went to a coffee shop to talk, just him and me, and that's when he told me the truth. "Nicole is jealous of you, Mom," he told me. "The kids adore you, they talk about you all the time, and she feels like she's competing with you for their affection." I was frozen. Jealous? Of her mother-in-law? I said, "Daniel, I'm not trying to replace her. I just want to be part of my grandchildren's lives." And he nodded but didn't seem to have any solution. I asked him what Nicole wanted exactly, and he was vague, said something about me needing to give them more space, not be so generous with the kids because that spoiled them, basically wanted me to back off a bit. I told him I was willing to talk to her, to find a middle ground, but that I wasn't going to stop seeing my grandchildren because she felt insecure. The following weeks were horrible. I tried calling Nicole to talk. She ignored me. I sent her text messages asking to meet. Nothing. The kids didn't call me anymore, and when I called the house, Nicole would answer and say, the kids were busy or asleep. It was obvious she was actively blocking my access to them. A month after that conversation with Daniel, I received another email from Nicole, this one even colder than the first. It said that after much consideration, She and Daniel had decided it was best that I not see Nathan and Connor for an indefinite time, that they needed to create a healthier family dynamic without my interference. That word, interference, hurt me so much I literally felt like a punch to the chest. I called Daniel crying, demanded he explain how he'd allowed this to happen, and he was stuck in the middle. I could hear it in his voice. "Mom, she's my wife. I can't go against her," he told me. I responded, "But I'm your mother and they're your children. Don't I have any rights here?" And he just kept repeating that it was complicated, that Nicole was determined, that maybe in a few months things would calm down. But I knew it wasn't going to happen. Nicole had made it clear she wanted me out of their lives, and Daniel had neither the backbone nor the desire to defend himself or defend me. That's when I made the most difficult decision of my life. If I wasn't going to be able to see my grandchildren, if my role in this family had been reduced to being an ATM that Nicole could use whenever she wanted but keep away from her children, then I was no longer going to keep financing their lifestyle. I sent Daniel an email, explained that the financial help was ending immediately, that I was no longer going to pay for private school, or for their vacations, or for anything else. I told him he had every right to decide who saw his children, but that I also had the right to decide what I spent my money on. It was brutal, I know. But in that moment, I felt it was the only thing I could control in this whole situation. Things got ugly fast. They had to take Nathan and Connor out of private school and put them in the public school in the neighborhood. Daniel had to get a second job, like delivering food at night and on weekends, to compensate for the loss of my money. Nicole still didn't work, of course, because according to her, the kids needed her at home, although apparently they didn't need me in their lives. I felt terrible for Daniel. I really did, because he was killing himself working. But I was also furious with him for not having defended my right to see my own grandchildren. A few months later, I found out from a friend who goes to the same salon as Nicole that she was telling a completely distorted version of the story. She was saying I was a controlling mother-in-law who had tried to alienate the kids from her, that I bought them expensive things so they'd love me more, and that when she finally set healthy boundaries, I reacted by cutting all financial support to punish them. She painted a story where she was the victim, and I was the manipulative villain. My friend told me people at the salon were nodding with sympathy, and I thought, nobody knows I paid for their house, that I supported them during the pandemic, that I've been their financial safety net for years. Things kept getting worse for them financially. I found out, again through third parties because Daniel barely talked to me anymore, that they'd stopped paying some credit cards and their credit score was destroyed. Nicole had accumulated huge debts on department store cards, buying things they couldn't afford, and now they were drowning. Part of me felt a bitter satisfaction. Like now you know what it costs to maintain that lifestyle without my help. But most of me was just devastated thinking about Nathan and Connor living in the middle of that financial stress. About 2 months ago, I received an email from Nicole. After almost a year of total silence, she writes to me saying they're going through difficulties, that Daniel is exhausted working 2 jobs, that the kids miss me a lot, convenient that now they do miss me, right? And that maybe we should talk about how to resolve things. Not a single apology in the whole email. Not an acknowledgement that they'd cruelly kept me away from my grandchildren, just a barely disguised request for money. I responded in 2 lines. I'm open to a conversation when you're ready to sincerely apologize. Until then, there's nothing to talk about. She hasn't responded. Now I spend my days focusing on myself, something I hadn't done in years because I was always worrying about them. I joined a gardening group in town, started volunteering at an animal shelter, and I'm planning a trip to Europe that I've wanted to take for years but always postponed. I also established a scholarship fund in my late husband's name to help low-income kids go to college, and honestly, it feels good to invest my money in something meaningful instead of financing other people's dysfunction. Does it hurt not seeing Nathan and Connor? Every day, like a wound that won't close. I wonder if they remember me, if Nicole has filled their heads with negative things about me, if someday I'll be able to hug them again. But I also know I can't force a relationship where I'm not wanted, and that allowing myself to be used only for my money while being kept away from the only thing that really mattered to me, which is those kids, it wasn't sustainable either for my mental health or my dignity. Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh cutting off the money, if I should have swallowed my pride and kept helping just to maintain some kind of connection, even if minimal. But then I remember that email from Nicole forbidding me to see my grandchildren. And I know I had no other choice. You can't buy love, not even from your own family, and trying to do so only leaves you empty and resentful. So here I am, at 60 years old, rebuilding my life without the family I thought I'd have, maintaining my firm position that I deserve respect and an apology before even considering helping them again. I don't know if it'll ever happen, but for now, it's the only thing I can control in this whole situation.